Saudi jets kill and injure more than 20 civilians in Taiz. Enemy's warplanes wage heavy bombardment on many governorates. Outspread of cholera adds to Yemen's misery. Good evening and welcome to Yemen Today's News. I'm Ali Nasser al-Khamri. An official source in the General People's Congress disdained recent statements made by the United Nations envoy to Yemen, Ismail Wald Sheikh Ahmed, concerning Hodeidah port. The source stressed that Wald Sheikh's statements on the United Nations approval of the aggression country's request for the total supervision of the port of Hodeidah falls within the scope of violating Yemen's sovereignty and independence, and encourages the continuation of aggression in killing innocent citizens and destroying infrastructure projects in various fields. The source pointed out that the request and justification made by the alliance of aggression to the United Nations comes within the framework of completing the imposition of trusteeship entirely on Yemen as an independent sovereign state, which is violation to all international laws and conventions and will not be accepted by the Yemeni people. The source reiterated that all the ports of Yemen are under the siege and that the request of the coalition from the United Nations falls within the framework of an international conspiracy to divide Yemen. Saudi jets killed and injured at least 20 civilians by targeting their vehicle in Mawza' Directorate west of Taiz. Local sources in Mawza' confirmed that the Saudi fighters have targeted the civilian's vehicle in Sha'bu area, resulted in killing and injuring those who were aboard. Meanwhile, the Saudi warplanes resumed attacking Al-Amiri area of Dhubab district with 2 strikes, and previously the Saudi jets hit the same area with several airstrikes. Saudi warplanes resumed bombing Nahm Directorate of Sana'a Governorate with heavy strikes. Local sources in Nahm Directorate said that the Saudi jet fighters launched 4 strikes on Harb Nahm hours after targeting the same area with 2 strikes and 4 light bombs. The Saudi jets also targeted with another air raid Al-Majawaha area at the same directorate. The Saudi warplanes re-attacked Marib Governorate with 2 airstrikes. Local sources confirmed that the enemy's warplanes have launched a raid near Souq Sirwah area at Sirwah Directorate. Another heavy raid was also launched by Saudi jets on the airport area at the same directorate. The president of the Humanitarian Forum, Hani Al-Banna, called on the world to pay attention to the suffering of 20 million Yemenis who die every day by famine and epidemics and living under the bombing and unjust siege imposed by the Saudi coalition against them.
The capital of Somalia. Today I finished 8 days visit, 8 days field visit to Yemen to assess the humanitarian situation of the people of Yemen. To find that it is catastrophic. It's catastrophic to nearly 20 million people of the Yemen. Shortage of food supply, medical supply, health equipment, and all the necessity and amenity of life there. Recently, we discovered positive cases of cholera in Sana'a, in Aden, as well as in Hodeidah. Even in the districts of Abyan, they declared the state of emergency 2 days ago. I urge each and every one of us, each and every one of you, to stand up next to the people of Yemen to try to help this humanitarian catastrophe. And they urge the Secretary General of United Nations, the Secretary General of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and the Secretary General of the League of Arab States to make a field visit to Yemen to look at the catastrophic humanitarian situation affecting nearly 20 million people of Yemen.
Cholera continues to rape Yemenis' lives, especially children who are suffering from the Saudi aggression and the epidemic outbreaks, while the humanitarian and international organizations declared its inability to cope with the epidemic. Here is a report.
Yemen children are walking barefoot searching for safety, which they lost since the beginning of the Saudi aggression that displaced them and increased their suffering and brought them diseases and epidemics. The children of Yemen are suffering from the spread scourge of cholera, which raped the lives that is received daily by their small bodies and get their share of the deadly epidemic that didn't pity their childhood. The cholera turned into a frightening ghost that threatens adults and young people and eliminate those who survived the fire of aggression missiles that caused the disaster and exacerbated it, especially on vulnerable groups such as babies and young children. The World Health Organization said earlier that 150 people had died of cholera, bringing the death toll to 206, while cases are up from 8,000 to 17,000, half of them children and elderly people. Despite the alarming number of the spread of the epidemic, Yemen stands alone with a collapsed health system without any international or humanitarian support. What is happening in Yemen is a war crime and a clear violation of Article 6 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, that is the right to live. But the world and its organizations and systems turned blindly to what is happening, even if it is the cholera, which can't be faced by a sound health system, rather the Yemeni one, which suffers from war and siege for more than 2 years.
Yemenis stand together to confront the risk of cholera outbreaks during a very serious crisis witnessed by the country due to the continuation of such barbaric aggression. Here is a report.
Unusual mobilization of health facilities, doctors, state institutions and citizens for confronting the risk of cholera, which has caused thousands of infections, many of which lead to death due to the economic crisis and late treatment. The majority of people cannot afford the cost of treatments because of the interruption of salaries. We thank media for its big role in raising awareness of people. The cholera cases come to us early, which makes it easy to treat the conditions with only oral rehydration solution. They rarely need intravenous fluids. The hospitals of the capital Sana'a are still full with many cholera-infected patients, which makes the state open additional centers to ease overcrowding. This 7 members family infected with cholera. In a sudden, I felt sick. My entire family and I infected with cholera. The volunteer doctors whose job is to treat cholera have relieved the suffering of patients and reduce the risk of the epidemic, which needs big efforts. This is our duty toward our people, because we know about the risk of cholera and have the ability to treat the conditions. We have to help. I am a volunteer. Efforts made by the society despite the limitations of possibilities due to Saudi aggression and blockade on everything in Yemen look serious in eradicating cholera epidemic as much as possible. Yemen has barely survived the aggression crisis. How long the international community will take to put pressure on Saudi Arabia to stop its aggression and blockade? The international organizations ask. Saudi aggression must quickly end.
With cholera still in the air causing death and fear among citizens, hospitals and medical centers have called all who are concerned in the entire world to cooperate in the fight against this epidemic. Here is a report.
Cholera epidemic spread more and more in all governorates of Yemen since the 27th of April, in which most hospitals in the capital of Sana'a and other governorates declared the emergency state. The latest statistics indicate that more than 14,000 suspected cases of cholera epidemic and 120 death cases of cholera in 14 governorates.
اليوم وأمس تقريبا الحالات بدأت.
From yesterday and today, most cholera cases got better, but the past days we faced shortage in the number of medical beds and medicines compared with the number of cholera cases, and we now work to establish the health situation. Most hospitals in the capital Sana'a become unable to receive more cholera patients due to the lack of the needed equipment represented in drugs and shortage in the number of medical beds as a result of worsening the health sector because of the unjust war imposed by Saudi aggression on Yemen. The health situation increased worsening due to the shortage of the medical equipment and cures as a result of the Saudi war in Yemen. The Ministry of Health directed a call for help for the international community and humanitarian organizations to provide the health sector in Yemen with $22 billion, which are needed to buy the necessary medicines for cholera epidemic. But the international community insists to turn a blind eye in what happens in Yemen through the unjust war and siege, which represents a green light to Saudi-led coalition to continue its unjustified aggression on 30 million people.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, back to today's headlines. Saudi jets kill and injure more than 20 civilians in Taiz. Enemy's warplanes wage heavy bomb